Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Saturday morning Fife Property Show. And today we are going to talk about investing. And are you thinking of investing? And we're going to really just dive into why being a landlord is a solid plan for your future.
So, I'm not really sure if I'm qualified to talk about this.
I think you're more than qualified to join in.
Might be, yeah. I was telling somebody this morning. I was telling somebody this morning. Actually, yesterday. I was telling somebody yesterday that I says, "See, the last time I saw you, since then I bought 50 houses." And they went, "What?" I bought 50 houses. It's like, what? That was weird.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a real solid plan for the future, and we're going to delve into it today. And I mean, if you are a landlord or investor or thinking about it, really maybe you need to ask yourself, how do you feel about becoming a landlord or an investor? I mean, if you're planning your long-term financial security, you have plenty of options to choose from. I mean, people look at savings, they do shares, they do pensions and property. They all have their pros and cons, and people choose one or sometimes multiple reasons, or more for multiple reasons. And we, as obviously letting and managing agents, have many different types of landlords as clients. Some have just one property, which is the majority of landlords out there, while some have large portfolios. But regardless of whether they're private individuals or they're in limited companies, they share the common motivations for owning rental homes. And that's ultimately, obviously, what it comes down to. So, I mean, a lot of people have different reasons for doing this, Jim, but they kind of all, in a way, align because it all comes down to, freedom, stability, and feeling in charge. That was one of the things you always go on about.
You know what I wrote there the now when you says, how do you feel about becoming a landlord? I actually wrote next to it, no one wants to be a landlord. But everybody wants the benefits that come with it, don't they? So they don't really want to be a landlord, but they want the benefits, and the benefits is potentially financial freedom. It's maybe anything from just a wee bit of extra income every single month to get you through that tough period, especially if you're a possibly pensioner and you've taken some of your money from your maybe 25% from your pension. You decide, I tell you what, I'll buy some property to diversify my income, and I'll have my pension as well to top that up. And that sort of strategy in terms of what you want to do, or you just maybe want to have something else, but it doesn't rely on your ability to perform. So that is ultimately an investor rather than a landlord. A landlord is self-managed. They do everything themselves. So they're the ones that get the call in the middle of the night if anything goes wrong, there's an emergency, and they've got to then get a contractor to come out and sort something out, or they've got to go out and do it themselves. So primarily, if you're wanting some sort of degree of autonomy or independence from being a landlord, then you need to be an investor instead. An investor will use a letting agent. And that's what I do now. I mean, I've done the landlord thing for God knows how long. I think the first, till I was 38-year-old. Well, maybe the past 10 years I've not been a landlord anymore. I've been an investor because you've looked after everything for me. Probably the last 10 years, I would say. So first 20 years, I was a hands-on landlord, kind of getting involved in doing everything myself, and still dabbling when I shouldn't have dabbled in the lettings division. Well, it's one of these things, hard to let go, especially if you're programmed to do that all the time, especially from a background where you're maybe you've been a high flyer in industry, or you've been a top achiever in what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you've got to then pass over the reins to someone else to manage your financial future. But I would say potentially who other would you want managing your financial future than somebody that knows a hell of a lot more about being a landlord than you do? Because that's what you need to protect yourself from. You need to protect yourself from yourself, I would say.
And like you say, it's handing over the reins of something that you've been so involved in and so comfortable doing for such a long time. It can be quite a difficult thing, but it's the only way that you could actually then free up your time to do other things or even progress and build yourself into a different level.
Why did you start? Why did you want to become a landlord and they're buying all these properties? Why did you want? Because I wanted financial freedom. Well, you've certainly not got it, I'll tell you, because it all relies on your ability to perform. And as soon as you stop doing that, you ain't getting paid anymore.
Yeah.
So you need to have a financial freedom blueprint. There's a phrase, financial freedom blueprint. I wonder who does that. You need to have a financial freedom blueprint that actually allows you to generate income without you getting involved anymore in property. Now that's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you've always kind of drilled that in, Jim, about you need to have things operating where they operate not around you and not on your ability to perform all the time, or you're never going to.
Do you know how I understand this completely? Is because I used to take everything with me to Spain when I went on holiday. Every time I went on holiday anywhere, I always used to take my phone with me because my tenants had to be in touch with me all the time.
Yeah.
And I had to get access to be in touch with me because I had to self-managed at that time. And then also when I had properties available for let, then I had to be able to get people, potential tenants, to get in touch with me as well on my phone. So my phone more or less rang 24/7 because at that time, when I retired at 38 from industry as an accountant for manufacturing, I think I had maybe about 35, possibly 40 properties. I was managing myself, all at the same time having a full-time job. That's why I was able to leave, because then I was able to have that tipping point where I had more income coming in than I actually generated at my job, and I lived within my means as a result of that. So there's another strategy. I lived within my means, and that allowed me to set myself free. But ultimately at that time, I hadn't had anybody else to be able to help or take over. I mean, I had Jim. Jim used to say, look, Jim, just divert your phone to me, or leave your phone with me.
You're not talking about yourself in a second.
No, Jim Stevenson. I had Jim Stevenson. Jim was another landlord that we, sort of ran the local landlord association together. He was chief executive. I was the chairman, or he was chairman. I was chief executive.
Yeah.
And Jim says, look, Jim, don't bother about it. Just leave your stuff with me. It's like, I'll take care of it because I'm managing my own property. I can manage yours quite comfortably. And I'll let him do that. And then I started to see the light in terms of getting somebody to manage. And then my mentor started to teach me. It's like, wait a minute, if you could earn X amount, why are you trying to why are you trying to do something that you could pay somebody X amount to do if you could earn far more than that with the same amount of time? It's is it linear programming? Yeah, scarce resources. I think, see, some of the things I learned at school actually came back when you think about it. Scarce resources was one of them. And I think that's what linear programming was all about, or was it actually making sure everything's in a place? Something like that. Anyway, when you have scarce resources, you can only allocate them to certain things, and you want to make sure you've got the right combination of things in order to maximize the income you have with the time that you've got available that you're using. So why would you then go and clean your car, unless it's a therapeutic thing? Why would you go and clean your car if somebody could do it a lot less expensive than what you could earn in your own time and your professional capacity?
Yeah, because you could spend 45 minutes an hour cleaning your car when you could pay somebody to do it, tenner to do it, and you could
might be a solicitor. You might be a solicitor that generates £300 an hour.
Yeah.
So I'll just do £300 an hour worth of work, and then I'll pay you 50 quid. I'll pay you. I'll pay you 50 quid to actually make my car mint.
Yeah.
And then you're still up, 250 quid.
Yeah.
That I think for me is the key about when you say, how do you feel about becoming a landlord? The answer to that now is like, no way. I would rather be an investor and actually get someone like you, which I do, Richard, anyway, manage all my properties for me with your team and actually make the decisions that otherwise I would make, and only really come to me with the really important decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only really high value decisions and things that you get involved in.
That's what gives you the freedom, the stability, and the feeling in charge. Retirement planning, financial security for their families are all in there.
They're all the things that are there, all the drivers, I think, initially. When people think about becoming an investor, a landlord, whatever, these are all the things that are the drivers for them. And they're all the things that then give them that feel-good factor about, obviously, then nurturing their passion for property and providing comfortable homes for people and things. I know that was a big thing for you about seeing this, the market where there was no homes really available for these people at this level, providing that kind of level of housing for people and things as well, that they live in for many years. These are the driving factors. So today we're going to look at, obviously, and we're going to look at and dive a wee bit deeper into how clients choose to become landlords or investors and why they enjoy it so much. And so you could then decide if you'd like to maybe start and grow your own property portfolio. Because people might be on the fence, and people sit on the fence for so long in that decision-making process. So that's
okay.
What we're going to talk about.
Can I just make a decision for people right now? If you're still on the fence about thinking about investing in property, get on and do it.
Yeah.
Because if you do it right, and years to come, you will be worth far more wealthy wise than you are right now. And I could more or less guarantee that. I can guarantee that because if you followed our formula, the financial freedom blueprint, that would get you there straight away over that period of time. You know, it's like what we said the other day about Bezos, and Jeff Bezos said, why does everybody want to get rich or whatever it was? What was it? I'll tell you the name. It's on my phone.
It was,
I keep it with me because it's a great one. Warren, your investing strategy is so simple. Why does everyone not copy it? And that's effectively what you would be asking me, Richard. Jim, your investing strategy is so simple. Why doesn't everybody want to copy it? Because no one wants to get rich slow.
Yeah, that was it. I thought that was quite good.
And it's true because they don't. They're not. Everybody likes the idea of actually having the wealth, but no one wants to get there slowly, and no one wants to pay no one really wants to pay the true price that they're going to have to pay to get what they really want. It's just like the illusion, and I'll call it a delusion for some people.
Delusion. That's probably
they love the delusion because they'll never get anything otherwise because they're not prepared to do anything. They like the idea and they might be rich one day, but they don't actually know how to be rich. They don't actually go to anybody to teach them to be rich or wealthy, and they don't actually do anything about it at all and expect at some point in time they should maybe just attract it by thinking about it so much. Oh, stuff from above, that sort of thing. It's like, oh, wealth come to me, wealth come. No, it's not going to work. No. It ain't going to work. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but it ain't going to work. You need a strategy. You need a plan. You need to implement it, and you need to take action.
Yeah. And so let's talk about property itself as a physical and a visible actual asset. And for many of our investors and landlords, the fact that property is something that they could see and touch is enough to make their investment of choice. So as well as taking comfort in the physical quality, they also feel that being a landlord is one of the safest investment options.
Look at it this way, Richard. It's not like Bitcoin. You could actually feel it and taste it and touch it.
Yeah.
Because Bitcoin could just appear like that, and you go, "What's happened to my Bitcoin?" Yeah. It's like, but a house is like you can't. Oh, what's happened to my house? It's disappeared. Unless you've got dynamo doing it, your house isn't going to disappear. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, and there is a number of reasons, and the fact that they're physical and visible and tangible assets, and homes can't be wiped out overnight like some companies can be. Buildings will stay where they are. House prices are not prone to really wild fluctuations like stock markets and crypto, like you said, Jim, as well. Yeah. And having a home is really everybody's top priority, and that'll never go out of fashion. We're always going to need places to live.
We're also on an island. Remember that.
So we've got limited space.
Restricted planning. But even though this is what the governments don't understand. Oh, well, we'll just free up planning and free up more land. Aye, but you've got no one to build them. You're sitting at a full employment situation, 4.24% unemployment. There's no one. You sent them all back to Europe.
Yeah.
You're only building, for example, England's only building 180,000 a year. They're meant to be building 250,000 for the last 20 years, and they've never ever caught up. So they're way back. They're about 2 million behind already. And then they announced they're going to build 350,000. And I'm like, what? Double what you couldn't? Double what you just achieved in the first place?
Yeah.
How on earth are you going to be able to do that? I once said to someone when they said to me, it was Brian Dixon actually said to me, Jim, what's your goals for next year? I went, oh, I'm going to double my turnover. And I went, oh, so how are you going to do that? Where are you going to get the manpower to do that? Where are you going to get skill level to do that? Where are you going to get the resources to do that? Where are you going to get the photographers to do that? Because you're going to have to double your photographers to take more photographs. Where are you going to get all the estate agents to be able to list that then, to get these? And I'm like, okay, you've got me. and it was like complete delusion. I mean, that was many years ago, but that really put into perspective for me. You can think of what you want, but if you've not got an action plan, then you've had it. So you're right, Richard. Homes can't be wiped out overnight. They're still there. It is. House prices aren't really prone to wild fluctuation. I mean, the worst wild fluctuation was they went down 20% in the credit crunch. It was only 20%. Do you think I was bothered that my homes went down at down 20% the credit crunch? No, because I was still earning rent on every single one of them. It made no difference to me. Nothing at all. I've still got all the houses I had in the credit crunch. In fact, I sold some of them off for two or 3 years ago for about double what they were.
Yeah, more than what they were,
Maybe some of them triple or quadruple what they were when I bought them. The credit crunch never affected anything. So this thing about their wild fluctuations and the rest of it, it makes no difference in the medium or long term. It doesn't. House prices always go up, by the way. And everybody's going to say right now, it's like, oh, but house prices are so high in comparison and they're really out of reach, everybody. Aye. And it will be for the next 10 or 15 years. But what happens is a boom will come along again, because in the next 10 or 15 years, house prices might not go up as much as what salaries do. House prices will go up probably more than inflation goes up in the next 10 or 15 years. You'll be getting rent from them as well as a result of that. So that is an additional income. It comes out an asset that no one else. I mean, gold doesn't produce income out of it. Gold just appreciates or depreciates. So does silver. Crypto is the same. It doesn't actually, you don't actually get anything out of it. And then, as I said before, it's always everybody's top priority. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just survival is the key thing. Self-survival. It's number one on that wee triangle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Self-actualization's at the bottom. Like, look at me, I'm so buff, and I'm on Instagram, and how many cars, and how many houses have I got, and where was my best holiday? And that's that self-actualization at the bottom. But survival is right up the top, and that is right on houses. So everybody has survival on their priority every single time, and that is a roof over your head. And that is always needed. And if you're sitting on an island, you've not got enough people to build these houses, you're still going to be in a fantastic position as a landlord, and you're still going to have all the clout, regardless of what the government think.
Yeah, and it's true what you say, Jim. I mean, with rental homes, with more rental homes needed, and never enough being built, it's hard to see how the private rented sector and landlords and investors ever having other than a very assured future, because
my word, the incumbent government in the UK right now, which is the Labour Party, have announced that they're going to legislate and say they've got to do 350,000 houses a year. They've got no chance. They'll be lucky if they get past 200,000. Lucky. They'll never get anywhere near it. And people go, but that's a start. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. They promised it from day one of getting in. They would do 350,000 a year. They are never going to get anywhere near that. They'll never be anywhere near that after at the end of their term. They'll never be, because it's not possible, because we don't have the resources, and we've got an immigration policy which is anti towards people coming in completely. We've not even got anybody skilled or trained or anything. There's nothing in place in order to sustain that infrastructure. Just like what Brian said to me when I said all these years ago, who are you training up to do this?
Yeah, it's kind of these pie in the sky, like, oh, we're going to do this, okay, but how are you going to do that?
No long-term thing. They just it's a great vote winner, as well as kick a landlord. That's a great vote winner as well, because we're in a minority in comparison to everybody else. So it's great to kick a landlord, for some of these political parties and organisations like Shelter, people like that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it does give you the joy of feeling in charge. Untouchable. Untouchable. because my income is no longer dependent on my ability to perform, and no one else can switch that off.
And
No
nobody
one,
else has
because
control over that.
I've de-risked everything, so the bank's all hedged, so all my funds are, my funding is all, they're fixed, so that's fine. I've got so much tenants that all my risk is spread over all these people.
Yeah.
So if 3 go down and don't pay, it's like, yeah, so what? So what?
Because you've
All the rest are paying. Out of 100%, 3% goes down. 97% are still paying.
yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't want all that hassle. What hassle? It's not giving me any hassle at all. The hassle you're getting, Richard,
Just going to say that.
and your team. Sorry to say. But that, hey, that's why you're
fair,
there.
it's a very few, minimal, anyway, to be fair.
But do you see what I mean? I don't think anybody out there, if you're tuning in, or you're listening in, or you're watching this, I don't think you really realise what this does for you. Since time began, you know what? I used to read the 100 most wealthiest people in the Times every single year. I
Yeah.
used to get the list every single year, and and success leaves clues, by the way. And I used to see like the head of Tetra packaging, the packaging on the milk cartons and stuff like
Tetra
that.
Pak, yeah.
He was number one. And then you had Alan Sugar at there at some point. You had Richard Branson there at some point, and everybody else at there at some point. And I noticed there was pharmaceutical people, there was packaging people, there was transportation people, there was beautician people, like perfumes and perfume houses,
Yeah.
fashion houses and stuff like that. That was all the people at the wealthiest. But do you know every single one of them had right alongside
Property.
real estate?
Yeah.
Every single one of them had real estate written right alongside by them every single time. And I thought, there's a success leaves clue here, and it's like every single one of them's got real estate next to them.
There's some as well. There's some maybe famous actors and singers and things who have been successful in their own right in what they do, obviously singing, but they've also got side hustles and they've got that money and they've made smart moves and invested in property, and they end up with a lot of
for
wealth.
me, I think what they're doing is the side hustle. I think the main income is the property, because the property builds your wealth. And that's what you need, is wealth to sustain the income without your ability to perform. It's like the orchard. The property is the one house, is the one tree that you grow, the apple tree that sprouts all the other apples on it. And then what you do with these apples, you might eat some of them. In other words, you might use some of that money from your property to go on a holiday or have a nice meal out or something to that effect. But you take the rest of the money or the rest of the apples, you take the seeds out and you replant them to grow more trees. Now, some won't come off, but the majority will. And then the next year, you'll have more trees. Therefore, you'll have more apples, more money. Now, do you take that money and reinvest it back in and plant these apples again and grow even more trees, which develop more apples income? And that's exactly what property does for you. So it's a medium to long-term gain, but it builds the wealth, and it's the wealth of the asset that creates the income that comes alongside it. Just like Bezos and Musk, with SpaceX. It's the wealth is actually in the value of SpaceX. It's not in the day-to-day income it generates. It's the value of what it would generate over the long time, and that's what gives the wealth. That's the company, the wealth. And Bezos with Amazon, the wealth is, Netflix is 278 billion.
It's mental.
Aye. 1994, Netflix never existed, by the way. 30 years later, 278 billion. I would have a slice of that. Even 1 billion would do me. 30 years. It's like, think about that, eh? Look at Jamie Siminoff. God, that was just about 6 years and it was 1 billion from Amazon for Ring.com. Wow. So it just shows you wealth is actually created in the asset, but the income is what the asset generates. And that's what property does for you every single time. But what does it mean? And this is why we talk about the joy of feeling in charge. When many landlords bought their first investment property, they already had an existing career. And they often work for themselves or someone else, like me. I work for someone else all the time. I wasn't daft. I wasn't going to put all my eggs in one basket. I always wanted to make sure I had a regular income coming in, so that I worked for someone else, and then built my property empire on the side. Property empire on the side. But for them, buying a rental home was the first step in feeling in charge of their own destiny without being answerable to anybody else. I loved my bosses, to be honest. You know, my bosses were absolutely fantastic. Some of them were great. One or two were, no, just probably one was horrendous. But that's okay. I was able to just move on because the skills I developed from my mentors and actually building my property portfolio and my empire over time had actually taught me a lot of things on how to negotiate in that, which gave me the skill set to actually move up in my career. So then when I moved out of that job at Tillis Russell, I took a double in my salary overnight and a company car. And that was just one move, double salary and company car. And it's like, I would never have thought I was capable of doing that, but my mentors are actually, no, Jim, yeah, you are capable of doing that.
You could do it,
and they had faith in me. And I then had faith in myself as a result of that. So it's been able to see that and have all these things. And then I was able to then earn more income. And because I was earning a lot less and I was living a lot less, in other words, I was, living within my means with that income, then I basically had another double my income, my existing income, to actually then reinvest in the property because I never actually increased my lifestyle.
Yeah, you remained living within your means that you were, and then you've just doubled your salary. So then that's even
so at
more.
That time, I think I was on 12 because that was years ago, 90s, and then I doubled my salary to 25 with the company car. So then I just took the existing 12, and I thought, I could just buy more property with that. No, I'm going to go on a holiday. I'm going to buy a flash car. I'm going to, go buy a bigger house. I actually took a step back and bought a smaller house.
Yeah.
That's when I moved from Canarchy at
To Taylor.
£60,000, and I moved into Taylor Street at £23,500. And my mortgage was just like 120 a month at that time. And I was still earning 25 grand. See? And then all that money went back in to looking after the property. So we lived effectively on £1,000 a month for everything.
Yeah.
And that was an easy gig. And everything else went back into property and building the business. So that is me planting all the seeds to grow the trees to get more harvest every single time. So the joy of feeling in charge, definitely. Having a business that's all about you, that's all about their passion for property, which genuinely is interesting and rewarding. That's what I liked about it. It also got me into politics as well, by the way, because I was the chief executive of the National Landlord Association for Scotland. So I was really heavily involved with the Scottish government as well, and in politics, and that's something that really floated my boat. It's getting all the legwork and the legal work done by a managing agent to find out the best tenants, which I learned by, trial and error. It made loads of errors, and then eventually thought, flipping heck, we need to do it ourselves. But I need to get a team to do it for me.
Yeah.
But because I tried to teach every other letting agency to be able to do this and what they need to do, but they just couldn't do it. So I thought, let's just start our own, and then that's when you got involved, Richard, and we took it from there.
Other letting agents still don't do what we do.
I know, but I think because people come to us first, they take it for granted that everybody else is still the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look at things and I'm like, God, I can't believe they're doing it like that, because I just forget and think that people do things the way that we do things, but they don't. Anyway.
And then the time, one of the most important things was buying back my time. And most people will see it on my Facebook profile, is I call myself a property time lord, because I used property to buy back my time. So the property earned the income, and I was able to then free up my time because I didn't need to be trading time for money anymore. That's what property did for me. It set me free completely, and I was never answerable to anybody because they weren't in charge of my income, or they had no control over my income and how I did it. And therefore, I was able to free all my time to do something else. Anything I wanted to do. If I wanted to sit on a beach for the rest of my life and drink pina coladas, I can.
Yeah.
And still have an income way beyond what everybody else has for doing absolutely nothing.
But it's because, like you say, you planted all these seeds.
Well, I was good at getting temporarily ambitious to be permanently lazy. And it was a great phrase that always instilled into me. Jim, let's get temporarily ambitious to be permanently lazy. Yeah, you're damn right. Let's put all these hours in. Let's do all that groundwork. Let's build these foundations. Let's get all these properties in place and then start to build it from there. And then when I left my job, it was like, can I be able to sustain that model and keep it growing and just actually still be able to take a certain amount of income out to live off? And the answer to that was yes. I was able to do that. But I went back into estate agency because I got bored. So I needed something to do. So that's why I got back into estate agency and started being an estate agent and building a separate company like we've got today, which is Fife Properties, the lettings division and the sales division. So this is all what it was about, and having simply receiving a passive income out of this, which is effectively what we've got now. Anybody that says to me that being a landlord isn't passive is absolutely correct, because you're doing it yourself, because it's no passive. But being an investor landlord, then it is passive. It can be passive quite easily. And I don't get involved in it anymore. Even Tony is to the point where, well, she goes over the stuff with property management once a week, and then she counts the money on Monday. That's what's come in and where the rents have gone. And that's me. I just look at a spreadsheet if I want. But I don't really need to. Don't need to do that. So there are very few investment strategies that give you such a direct control. I think that's how to say it here and summarize this, over how your assets are managed and perform. And it's the freedom that appeals so much to myself and also to the people that we actually invest for.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, we tell them what they should be buying and they go and buy it, and then we manage it for them, and they're the ones that make all the income out of it and actually get the appreciation out of it as well.
Yeah, I know. And so let's talk about, like, obviously the financial and the future kind of flexibility of investment and things as well. And unless you're really a substantial shareholder, you don't really have any immediate sway on how, like, a company operates. But as a landlord and an investor, it's a very different story. And you could have that future proof for yourself, for your income, by following, like, the market trends and putting your equity into rental properties and rental homes that then work for you, and putting it to work, basically. Like you said, Jim, you were setting all these things up and putting them all to work.
Remember that time I said to myself, I'm going to just sell everything off and call it a day?
I remember.
And then I woke up the next day and gave myself a slap across the face in front of the mirror and went, "Are you nuts?"
Well, it was a couple of days. But you come around, yeah.
It's like, I just like, oh, I've had enough. And it's like, and then a couple of days later, I was like, "Are you nuts? You're just chopping the tree that bears the fruit. You're killing the golden goose that lays the eggs every single time. Why would you do that?"
But then it just shows that everybody could end up in that kind of mindset, and
they do, Richard.
And don't
absolutely do.
Come to the realization,
yeah. And I keep saying to them, well, get a letting agent to do it for you. Oh, I don't want to give them the money. It's like, oh my God, you're going to chop down the tree that bears the fruit. It gives you every single year. And you don't want to give a letting agent the money to do it. Are you nuts?
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario, because then you're free and all you're doing is paying. I'll tell you what, this scenario here, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And that's effectively what somebody does when they sell their portfolio. They've got 100% of nothing now, because it's like, oh, it's all or nothing. They don't think about the halfway thing about, I'll get a letting agent to do it for me, and they'll maybe take 15% of my income. And you've still got 85% then.
Yeah. And you've not got the hassle.
It's absolutely nuts, Richard, how people, but because they get themselves emotionally turmoiled and emotionally invested in it, they make an emotional decision rather than a logical decision.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And then as we talk about putting rental homes to work and things as well, there's many ways that landlord investors and that could really leverage their properties. You could seek out homes that have future potential to convert, maybe, into bigger properties, whether it's loft space or adding extra bedrooms, or that can be extended or something, and then you've got that potential to add extra value and extra income. You could reconfigure or renovate an interior to take advantage of maybe changing local demographics. We've done a lot of refurbs and things just now, and it's benefited greatly in terms of the type of tenant and the rent value and things as well. And you could also look at refinancing to get more competitive mortgage rates and mortgage deals. You could release equity and then obviously reinvest in improvements, business expansions, or even lifestyle purchases as well. you can use equity for, but be careful when you do that.
It's quite interesting, Richard, because you talked to me recently about a 20 grand refurb for a property.
Yeah.
And then I think about it and I look about how much I'll increase it. And you said it was probably around about 150 a month. And then I worked it out at £1,800 a year, divided by the 20 grand. I thought that's a 9% return. Plus the fact the 20 grand is like money in the bank, because the 20 grand sits in your property and it's a proper appreciation. And then that'll go up 4% every single year, because that's what's gone up on average over since time began. So when you think about the logic of that, that then increases by 4% every single year, which is way double inflation right now. Plus you're getting your income at 9% if you're just investing that 20 grand in cash.
Yeah.
Biggest belief. And there's still people out there that think, oh, it's not really good investment, the hassle involved. It's like, I tell you what, the hassle eating beans and chips every month is a lot greater, and the pain than it is of the benefit. You know, it's like that to me is what I wouldn't want. And effectively that's how I started. Beans and chips every night. And it's like steak sausages were a luxury.
Yeah.
But I'm not telling anybody else to pay that price. What I'm just saying, it's like you don't
just
realize
an example.
you don't realize how great this asset class is.
Yeah. And if anybody would really like to make the most of the rental property or the actual rental market here in Fife, then I mean, it's here to stay, and we could help you stay on top of changing demands and the popularity of the market in Fife, and what are the profitable lets and things in certain areas. So, I mean, by all means, if anybody wants to reach out to me, my contact details are in the post attached. Please do that.
You'd mentioned about refinancing more competitive mortgage deals and release equity for improvements, business expansion, lifestyle purchases. I'm actually going through that now. So, you know, the incoming government's obviously indicated straight away that capital gains is going to be a target they're going to go for. Possibly they'll maybe, you never know, they might take away the tax credit at a lower rate on Section 24 from owner-occupiers, owner landlords rather than limited company landlords, which is perfectly legal for them to do. So if they do that, we're in the swanny a bit. So that's why I've decided to take a huge chunk of my portfolio and sell it to my limited company now before the budget comes in October. And that's perfectly doable. And plus, because I'm transferring more than 6 properties, I don't need to pay the additional dwelling supplement, which is 6% of the actual value. So I'm saving myself, in essence, probably around about £36,000 in ADS. Woohoo! Just that thought process about saving yourself 36 grand is great.
Yeah.
just by transferring. Admittedly, I'm going to have to take as much capital gain hit, but that's okay. I'm okay with that because, you know, I've made a gain on it. I'm happy to lock that in. I'm fine with that. So I've planned for that as well, because the price of the property is obviously you're paying capital gains tax at 24%, and it's 36,000. Remember the 76% that you're getting, and the gain as well in your pocket. So you're maybe paying 36,000.
So that's the way
gains.
Should look at it, and they don't.
Use that times 0.76. You're actually making 114,000 gain in your pocket. That's all right. I'll pay £36,000 any day if I'm getting 114,000 in my pocket for actually just holding on to the property.
Yeah.
Now tell me, property is not a great asset class. Plus the fact I'm selling it to my limited company, so therefore I've still got the property, and that'll appreciate in value under my limited company, and I'll have a lower tax rate position because it's corporation tax, and I'll still earn money on the asset through my limited company. And I'll be able to take out in dividends and not incur national insurance contributions, because it'll be a dividend which is 8.75%. Or 33%, but I'll make sure it's 8.75 because you have to do tax planning correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
Now tell me that property isn't the best asset class. Crickets.
And that's the thing as well.
Tumbleweed and crickets. It's like there's nobody there to tell me any different.
People think about it the wrong way. I think that's what, like you're saying, obviously, especially about the tax, and obviously you're looking at the capital gains and things. People were like, "Oh no, I'm not paying that." But
I genuinely just want to start a fund for everybody to invest in it, just to show them how easy this is. I genuinely just want to do that just to prove that point. And it might come. You never know.
It might come, yeah. So let's talk about income and security into retirement. And there's no two ways about it that later in life is coming to us all. And even a small lettings portfolio can give you that, give you a valuable feeling of security as you approach into retirement. So for obviously our clients and landlords and things, they have some of the following advantages to building financial security after they stop working. So the buy-to-let business can still run and will continue to run. I mean, you could leave it running past your death, and we're going to talk about legacies and things in a minute. Expand and produce income into your retirement with very little work or managing you having to manage people because you've got people doing it for you. Rental homes can become a source of pure income long before you stop working, unlike your private pension where you have to obviously wait until that time in life and that certain age to obviously then feel the benefit of a private pension.
Because you can get it anytime you want.
Yeah. And then we spoke about obviously property prices and rents consistently outperform savings accounts, ISAs, and you could build a substantial equity to release even after you retire when the capital value continues to increase. As we said, obviously property values continue to increase year on year.
Yeah. This is quite interesting. Let me just, where have I got it here? I'm looking at my handouts here from the Financial Freedom Blueprint. And I'm saying, here it is. Yeah, okay. There you go. This is a great one to show people. I'll get it up on the screen right now. This is fact. Nobody can argue with this, by the way. So this is fact. Let's just leave that there. Average property price in 1966 was £3,595 versus 2023, £291,361, an 8,004% increase. Inflation was 1,417%. And that's not taking into account the income either you generate from it.
Mm-hmm. And I remember even the first time you showed me that, and I thought, God, you just didn't think about it like that. And that's what people need to realize.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what you don't understand. It's like the consistent, and then when you retire, look at this way. If you've got 125,000 right now, and this is just to give an example, 125,000 leveraged up with the bank's money, because you want to make money on the bank's money. So the bank lends you at 5%, you're probably making about 10%, maybe even 15%. So you're making a marginal of 5% or 10%, depending on the bank's money you're borrowing. But you've got 125,000 in, and you're able to borrow 75% more than that. So you can get 500,000 with 125 grand. Now, if you wait 20 years, that'll double in value more than likely. So your 125,000 in 20 years has made 500,000 because that's the portfolio size that you've just bought with the bank's money. So the 125 divided by 500,000 divided by 125 is effectively 400%. So 400% over that year, but 500,000 would then give you an income at retirement if you were current for 65, for example, and say you lasted another, another 20 years. 500,000 over another 20 years would give you an additional income of 25,000 a year. Plus the fact, if you kept a hold of them, by the way, because you could mortgage that back out. You could mortgage it back out. There's taxation implications for that and deferred taxation, capital gains and the rest of it. So you have to speak to an accountant about it. But I'm just giving you an example. But also, if you've got £500,000 worth of property and it did double in value, you could then mortgage that back out. You could buy more property at that time and generate more income out of that as well. See how the wealth is all about building the assets.
Yeah.
So the assets is the wealth, the property, what it generates is the income. So the more assets you've got, the more income you're going to generate as a result. But you only ever started off with 125,000. Imagine if you just started off with 25. You could buy one property and then you could take it from there. But over the years, you'll have a hell of a lot more than you would have had in the first place. If you go and spend 25,000 on a brand new car, in 5 years' time, it's gone.
Yeah. It starts depreciation.
Because that depreciates. It doesn't produce anything. So that's why it's very rare. If you go and buy your own house, and it's controversial because I'm an estate agent. You go and buy your own house, all it does is cost you money. It doesn't generate any more income. It doesn't generate income for you. Like what a separate buy-to-let property does. It doesn't generate an income for you. So sinking all your money into your own house is possibly not the answer when you can take that money from your own house and actually invest it in property, which actually generates income for you instead. And then you pay off your mortgage as the result of that.
And
why do you think I've still got a mortgage?
Yeah, and people could argue that obviously the capital appreciation on your house is the part of the investment on your own home. But then really, if you're going to then move on to another home or upgrade your home, then the money that you've accumulated.
I got too excited there.
I wondered, you must have pushed the button.
I got too excited and pressed the wrong button because I was going, "Your beauty, this is great."
I was just saying, people might argue the point that obviously their own home, obviously they've got the capital appreciation and the increase in value over time, as where the added value is. But then really, if you're in a home,
like for like.
Yes, and then if you're going to then upgrade and go up the property ladder, that money you've made, you're going to have to pay on to go up the ladder anyway.
Yeah.
So you're,
or what I'll do is I'll downgrade and release my equity to do that. So you'll downgrade. I find you'll release equity to do that, but you'll be in a smaller house, and that equity you released in the first place could have been released in the existing house. So the mortgage you could have made more money on as a result. So if you can make 15%, and somebody went, "Oh, you'll never make 15%." You're right. Probably 20, 25, sometimes infinite. But if you can make that, then why would you not borrow it at 5% on a 5-year fixed rate deal and see how it went on? And if it all went pear shaped and it didn't work as you want it to work, go and sell the property and just pay your mortgage back after 5 years. What you got to lose? What happens if it works? It will, by the way. But what happens if it works? Oh yeah, boy. 5 years' time, where would you be? You'd have a lot more choice, wouldn't you? Because you'd be earning an income now.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to, I'll just work part-time now because I don't need that full-time job anymore. I don't need to be on that treadmill anymore. I don't need to be on the hamster wheel. I tell you what, I'll maybe just continue to work full-time, but I'll go on an extra special holiday because I've now got the income to do that. That is what it does for you. Mm-hmm. Nobody loves property. Everybody loves what it can give you.
Yeah.
That's what they love.
Yeah, and retirement as the driver, definitely in a lot of cases. And I mean, there's been surveys and things of private landlord surveys now, and planning for retirement is really the main reason why people become landlords or investors.
Here's what broke people say, Richard. Here's what broke people and poor people say. Oh, I didn't think I'd like retirement. That's because you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
That's why. Oh, I don't think I'd like all that money. Have you tried it lately? Because it's pretty good. And if you don't like it, why do you not just take it anyway and give it to somebody that needs it?
Yeah. So, Jim, why do you not tell us a wee bit about a legacy for your family?
Have I not done enough talking?
Well, I was going to talk about it, but I thought this is kind of your thing because it is one of the main reasons that you're doing what you're doing, and it's part of your ultimate plan.
I can't help it. I get excited. About where I am, and I want to tell everybody else about how special it could be for them. Yeah. I just think they don't understand it, and it's my job to relay that and convey that information so people really understand what it can truly do for them. I just don't think they realise. They don't know what they don't know, and they just live in a cocoon influenced by the people around about them who are just as skint as they are. That's what really happens. And when you get somebody coming along me, it sounds like a snake oil salesman, and to a degree, then you tend to like, oh, whoa, if this was so easy, everybody would be doing it. Flipping is. If you know what you're doing and you understand the person that's trod the path before and they can tell you how to get there, why do you think you go up with a Sherpa up Everest? Because the Sherpa's been up Everest loads of times. They know all the pitfalls and where to talk, where to walk all the way up.
Way to walk, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think you get a doctor to blow and give you a diagnosis about what's wrong with you? You didn't go to the joiner, do you? You didn't go to the local person in the pub that's hanging off the end of the pub, and off the end of the bar and go, "Oh, I've got something dodgy with my knee. Could you help diagnose it?" No, you don't. You go to a specialist to do it. So why wouldn't you go to somebody that's done it before and actually, how did you do it? Do you have a blueprint for that? Oh, funny enough, we've got a financial freedom blueprint. But we'll talk about the legacy for family next.
Yeah.
Now, like me in particular, definitely me. You might, I definitely want to have a solid financial future for, and also increased opportunities and an easier life, especially for my children. The day Tony was born, my daughter, I committed to this 100%. And I said I was going to go to Monte Carlo or bust. Now, the reality is that's just a phrase, but that was to the moon, definitely, in the stars. And I was never going to stop until I got there. And then I could go further. So that was what drove me, for when they became adults, they could have choices to do it. Now, believe it or not, now that they're adults, it's like, flipping heck, they've got more money than I ever had at that age. Like, they put me to shame. It's like I was still scraping about the dirt and ashtrays for doubt so I could get roll-ups and everything like that. They're living the life of Riley. Ben's away to blooming away abroad again to see a girl abroad, or one of his girlfriends. One
enough. All right.
I don't know. I don't know what he does, but that's where he's away at. And Scott, is well positioned as well for what he wants to do. He can go and do what he wants to do anytime he wants to do it. And Tony's in a similar position, but they have that fallback position where it's like this fund that I've created, because effectively that's what it is. Will look after them, and if they have any children, it'll look after them. And if their children have any children, it'll look after them. And if their children have any children, it'll look after them. And it'll go on as a legacy for the rest of eternity, effectively. That's how I built it, to sustain that. They might, in the future, they might be the people that chopped down the tree that bears the fruit, because they might just want to, I've had enough of it, I don't want to get it. But hopefully by doing the wealth creation shows, they will realise, and the teachings they've had from me, they will understand the concept of this is all about the farmer mentality. You grow the seed, you nurture the seed, you harvest the seed, then you keep the seed continuing to grow and harvest, grow and harvest, grow and harvest, grow and harvest. But you're planting more seeds at the same time. So the next minute, your garden becomes a field, your field becomes an orchard, your orchard becomes an estate, effectively. And that's what the most important thing. So there are many ways that you can own rental homes to help you provide for your family and financial security and give your children that head start. I mean, buying property in a limited company is a great thing. I mean, as I said, I'm currently moving some of them in our name when we first started out into limited company, but I've got most of my portfolio in limited companies now. Then I can make my family shareholders. And the great thing is, because I've borrowed so much for the bank and I've not got that much equity in it in comparison, it's easy for me to make my family shareholders later on, because then there's no intrinsic value in the net worth of the company, even though it generates a huge amount of income, because that's still how it's seen. So it's the planting the trees that bear the fruit all the time, but I'm not caring who really ultimately owns the trees. It's like I'm getting income out the trees every single time.
You're getting the fruit as you go along.
Yeah, so I'm not bothered, because the asset's never going to be realised. So what do I care? The asset will never be sold. So it doesn't make any difference to me. It'll just be constantly refurbished and rented. That's it. And the same with the children as well. So the intrinsic value of the property is neither here nor there, unless I want to get more borrowing against the asset, which is what most buy-to-let people do, are really successful at, in the right way, by the way, not just throwing caution to the wind and leveraging themselves to the hilt. There's all about risk analysis and everything, and seeing exactly what the trends are and what's going to happen next. And then also the other thing as well, it could give your children or family members a valuable vocation and useful business experience, possibly to set them up for life as well. So that's why Tony, to a degree, is involved in this, but not involved to the point. She started off in lettings. Remember, she was property management, so she got a bit of experience in that. That taught her straight away. It's like, I never want to do that. and that motivates her then to then go, okay, let's make sure we can sustain this model, so I never need to do it.
We need to have people doing this.
Yeah, that's the key here. And also having ready-made properties for your children to move into when they possibly leave home. I had thought about that, and I was about to sell some of the ones that I was selling to.
We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah. And then I had a change of heart, because they've got ISAs up to the hilt. So they've got the £12,000. They'll get a £3,000 when they buy their first home. And I thought to myself, do I really want to put a property in their name with this kind of government that's in just now? It's anti-landlord. No. So I don't think that's the right thing to do. If anything, if they really want to invest it, I think they'd probably invest in the company that I've created by putting money into the company, who will then go and buy more property on their behalf because it's their income. So I think that's where it should be. So I wasn't too sure about it, but I've come to a conclusion. But then it doesn't mean to say later on the two of them can't buy one together, Scott and Ben, because they're both at the full amount of ISAs for Help to Buy ISAs. They could buy one together, and it could be a £50,000 property. So it could be one of mine. They could just buy together and just have all their money in it and have no borrowing on it. So all the income it generates and the price it goes up is all theirs. None of that goes to the bank. And I think that would be the most productive way to do that, in essence. Although, sorry, they'll have to live in it first.
Yes, well,
I'll have to qualify that by saying that. Just in case anybody picked up on that. So ready-made properties for children when they leave home. I did have a prospect of that, like Thistle Terrace was for one of them, and possibly there was another one. You know, I talked about Green Gates, I talked about Grave Street, and I thought, well, but tenants are in there. I'm not going to put them out to get them at home. And they're not ready to fly anyway. They're not ready to fly the nest. It's like flipping it. They're milking it for all it's got. They're getting free food, free digs, free energy, free everything. Someone else is cleaning the house. Yeah, it's like the Hotel Parker. You know, why would we want to leave? And I did say that to them. I said, look, if you meet anybody in particular and you really do want to settle down, we could always subdivide the house, because we've got a back door and a front door, and the back door comes right into the stairwell, so you can actually cut it off. So if we ever wanted to do that, and Ben and Scott decided they had partners, it's like one could have upstairs, one could have downstairs, and they could have their own self-contained property within the house itself. And then we could just go and live in our existing rental property. We've actually got in a limited company down the road in a 2-bedroom bungalow, and then we just leave the asset as it is, because it's going to be theirs anyway, and I'm not needing it. So that's you know. So I've got their whole life planned out for them. They just don't know it yet.
It's just, but it's easy to see how you get excited about the whole process, and especially about the legacy thing in the family. And you've really just obviously broken it down there quite well, and all the different ways that it could benefit them in the future if they choose to go that way.
We all doing it for the kids, didn't we?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you would really like to know more about using your rental properties and things to create that financial security for your family, we done the previous blog and it was called Doing It for the Kids, and the link's in the post as well. So if you are in that mindset and thinking about your legacy and your family's financial security further down the line, click on that and have a wee watch or a read, or the podcast, you could listen, whatever.
It's
really good tips.
Take a hold of something and go, why are you not investing in property? Are you nuts?
So there's a lot of good tips in that, and obviously what we covered today as well. So and like I say, Jim, it is really easy to see how you get so excited about it. But if you'd like to know more about becoming an investor or how to build a portfolio, then and using rental property here in Fife, by all means, feel free to contact me. My contact details are in there. Reach out to us on the comments or any other platforms, or we do shows all the time, so feel free to do that. And I think that's us for, unless you've got anything else to add today, Jim.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna stop there because I'll keep talking. Could have an Olympic gold medal in this if there was a sport in it.
Yeah, you could tell it's something that you get really passionate.
I'll probably be the world record holder as well at the same time. Anyway, perfect. Thanks for getting me on, Richard. I'm enthusiastic. I think everybody should be investing in property in some shape or form, even if it's in a fund. For property run by the right people, by the way. Am I saying hint? Possibly. I've got to do it, haven't I? Just to prove that everybody could be really successful if they just invest in the right people. I think that's the necessary steps they have to take. I have had people approach me in the past, 100,000, 150,000. I've said, look, we'll certainly help you buy some property and we'll manage it for you. And that's the strategy we use just now anyway for people. We advise them what they should be doing, how they should be doing it, because it's all their asset in their own right. Because it's like, fund management's a different ball game. But I definitely think we should do it. we should do it. It's when. Yeah.
It's the when is the question. So we'll leave it there. And thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye for now.